So you all will have to bear with me. I don't ever do non-technical talks. So making a brief and maybe one-time exception. So we'll see how badly I mess this one up. So my Twitter picture, by the way, is Darlene from Mr. Robot. I have gotten multiple emails asking if I really am the actress that plays Darlene. I'm not, but I wish that I was. So my day job, I'm a principal engineer at Amazon. I work on containers, EC2 and Amazon Linux. Prior to moving into a PE role at AWS, I was a technical evangelist for Amazon. That's a marketing role. A lot of my jobs leading up to then had been engineering jobs. I have a slightly unconventional path to tech. I don't usually tell this story, by the way. There's a blog post because I got tired of people asking me, which is the best way to get me to write a blog post. So I went to college for political science. I went to Tufts, by the way. I see that we won in that clip. Oh, that was sweet. I have like zero school pride. That was amazing. I've been waiting all day. I don't have the video, but I wish I had. So I went to school for political science. Like most people of my generation, programming had been a bit of a hobby, but I actually grew up here. My public high school with 90 people in my class did not have a computer science department. So I didn't really figure out that it was a thing until my senior year of college, where I was like, oh, that's an actual job. By then, spoiler alert, it was too late. So I moved to New York, obviously, as all good crises start. And I took a sales job at a tech startup because I knew that I wanted to be in tech and that I wanted to kind of make engineering into a job, but I wasn't really sure how to do it. So I worked for this tech startup. I started in sales. I was also, spoiler alert, so bad at selling things. I don't actually care if you buy it, which makes for a really bad salesperson. I'm a terrible liar. I just was like, well, you like it or you don't. No skin off my back. I moved into Salesforce development. I was a Salesforce admin. I picked up the development side. Salesforce uses a language called Apex, which is just Java, but they made it worse. Amazon still uses Java, so I'm allowed to make fun of it. And I did that. I moved into an actual kind of back-end developer role. A CTO took a chance on me. Moved through a bunch of other tech startups and various other kind of systems engineering roles. And the thing that I liked about systems was that we all kind of got to the same place, because it wasn't something that you really learned in school, right? That it's something that you pick up on the job, you pick it up from other people, because generally people aren't running production systems from university. So the playing field to me felt more level than it would have been as a software engineer. I still, in the Amazon category, am not a software engineer. I'm a systems development engineer, which means that I work on systems. I don't have to answer algorithms questions, loops, which is nice, because I cannot. Anyway, so over the last couple of years, so I spent 11 years in an engineering role now, 3 of them at Amazon, and I've been very protective of what I would consider my technical credibility. It is hard won. It can feel really hard to come by, especially if you are not a white man. And can't find the tweet, but I'm pretty sure at some point I said that I was never going to do a non-technical talk. Like, why would I do that? No one needs to do that. And that's pretty common. I think I probably said this, knowing me, multiple times with great conviction. Here we are. And I think first things first, right? It's worth asking, why don't I want to do non-technical talks? Why are so many folks in this industry, I think especially the underrepresented ones, why don't people do soft talks? Why don't people talk about things like diversity and inclusion or culture or hiring or mentoring or all the great things that we're covering at this conference? Why don't people like to do them? And why do you see so many posts from people saying, I never want to do that, myself included? This is really common, that people don't feel like they have enough credibility to give a non-technical talk. And that by giving a non-technical talk, some of that hard-won technical credibility is going to be thrown out the window. A brief note, I don't like the term soft talk, and we'll get to it in a bit. But let's assume for the purposes of this conversation that a soft talk means not directly engineering, architecture, code related. I don't agree with it, but here we are. And I think this kind of understanding that this will hurt our credibility is incredibly pervasive. And this has a lot of consequences for us as an industry, right? That anything that I do that does not directly prove to people how technical I am is going to hurt my career. And I think that you see that actually, it does happen, that it's not just in our heads. We'll see some choice excerpts from my Twitter replies in a second. But being an underrepresented minority in tech a lot of the times feels like you need to prove your technical credibility at every single step of the way, right? From interviews to being in meetings at work to what you post on social media to the talks you give at conferences, not like this one, but like many other ones. You have to kind of prove all the time that you deserve to be there, that you've earned your spot there, that you're qualified, that you're good enough. And I think it's probably worth pausing for a second and what does being technical mean? So we're all very protective of this. What does it actually mean? Isn't there kind of more to being technical than just engineering? And we'll go into some more details in a little bit. But being technical, and it's kind of its friend, technical credibility, are incredibly hard to measure because they're so subjective, right? Because whether you're technically credible or technically credible enough, it depends on who you are. So I can be a guy right out of undergrad and be technically credible. I can be a black woman who's been in the industry for 25 years and not feel like I have enough technical credibility. So it's so subjective because it depends on who you are. And I think in even more cases, it's not the impression that we have of ourselves. So it's not just imposter syndrome or whether we just believe that we deserve to be here or that we're good enough for kind of the bar that we're at, whether that bar is, equal for people or not. But we hear that the perception that others have of us is of not technical enough. So what gets us perceived as that? So if we don't have the tech talk, so just how Julie put it in that tweet, what are we being judged on instead? So these are not from my Twitter. But here are a couple of other ones. And here's a couple women that have really incredible reputations in this field talking about how they have to look attractive, but not too attractive. That they get talked down for being not technical or then for too technical. So you have to be this kind of mythical combination of technical but nice, attractive but not so attractive that you're threatening. And that balance is incredibly hard to walk, right? That you have to get so many things right, and spoiler alert, it's never right. There is no magic combination that people will find that will make you both respected and not too scary or not too intimidating or technical enough. So I think it's, for a lot of us, it's a question of, can we be comfortable with what others think about us? And can we do some of this other work without having to feel like we have to protect our technical credibility? And it gets worse. So the more of these factors that you have, the worse this perception is. That you have to validate what you're doing all the time. You have to validate your work all the time. You have to go out, and the default for a lot of folks is that you're not believed right off the bat. You have to go out and you have to prove to this whole community, actually I am right. I do know what I'm talking about. Like, I wrote the book on that. I wrote the paper on that. The talk that you're quoting, I gave the talk. So I do deserve to be here, and I do know what I'm saying. And you get kind of like a million variations on this same conversation, right? Which is, why don't people believe me? And you get folks that are like, well, I don't actually see gender. I don't see race. I only see coding ability. One, it's not true, or you wouldn't be telling me on Twitter. But also, that's not the whole picture also. And that by focusing just on coding ability or your ability to do well on like a cracking the coding interview loop, that shouldn't be the whole picture either. So this is a selection from my mentions. And you can see that it is very difficult to get it right. So the one on the bottom corner is saying, so I did a video with Brandon from CoreOS, who is a lovely guy. And he was wearing a button-down shirt, and I was wearing an Amazon shirt because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, I'm an Amazon employee, and sometimes I have to do what my corporate overlords would like, which is wear an Amazon t-shirt. I have a lot of tattoos. You can see them. And this gentleman on YouTube believes that it is extremely unequal that I can have tattoos at work and that Brandon has to wear a dress shirt. And it is incredibly hard to be a white man in tech, and I'm so sorry. And a lot of this, so something else that's a little different is I had no kind of public Twitter presence outside of Amazon. I never did any public speaking for engineering before I took this job. I didn't have a Twitter account, or I had a Twitter account, but I didn't use it, posted pictures of my parents' dogs. So my whole public presence for engineering has been attached to Amazon. I closed my DMs, obviously, very quickly into this journey. But the amount of emails that I get, either arguing with what I said, or saying why I don't believe shouldn't be here, or why Amazon should fire me for what I look like, what I said, for telling them that they were in fact wrong on Twitter, the number of people that send me book recommendations, or explain virtualization to me. I work on EC2. I think I'm good. Or in some of these cases, you can feel like there's a very unearned sense of familiarity that comes from being a minority on the internet. That people feel like they know you and that they're entitled to details about your personal life. But I've never been on there for non-technical purposes. This is not an existing Twitter that I started using for work. It's always been for Amazon, and it's always been for engineering. So this is just what happens, and this is only what fits on one keynote slide, of what comes just from putting out technical content for my job on the internet. And it's way worse. And you can see from kind of all of these, that there's a ton of factors that goes into these. So your race, your gender, what you look like, whether you have a degree or not, how you got into tech. It's really about on what kind of job you do also. So we have this hierarchy of jobs in tech that's coding's on the top, and then everything else kind of goes down, and that's wrong, and we shouldn't have that. But we're very attached to our status quo. So why does this matter so much? So I think to kind of grossly oversimplify this, the more technical credibility I have, the more successful I can be. So all of these, so race and gender and physical appearance and my degree and my path to tech, my job, those are all factors in how much I'm listened to or how much we're respected. They're all factors in how technical I'm perceived right off the bat. So I can get past any of these. So I've been doing this job for quite a while. I can get past the fact no one ever asks me now whether I have a degree or whether I started off as a salesperson or a Salesforce admin or a DBA. No one cares anymore. They did for a while, so you can get past these things. Gender's a little harder to get past, so is race. But they're all factors in kind of how technical we're perceived right off the bat. And that can mean the difference for a whole bunch of stuff, right? For getting hired or fired or bonuses or promoted. Even whether someone likes the document, it depends. It's Amazon, we write a lot of documents. It depends on the kind of feedback that you get, at annual review time. No one's ever respected on Twitter, though, so we're going to leave that one out. And to make up for all of those, we have to kind of prioritize our technical credibility over absolutely everything else. So you get a lot of minorities that feel like they can only focus on the solely technical work. They can only give the hardest technical talks. They can only do live coding. They can only, they have to focus on their technical career and their technical path over everything else. And you should have the luxury to do that if you want, right? You should be able to do that. But not valuing this soft work it hurts us as an entire industry. And if we kind of take the premise that these skills are equally valuable, then maybe do we need a better way to define technical credibility? And as I've gently led us to the point here, yes, we maybe needed a better way. So in my opinion, and obviously I'm fairly biased and also fairly privileged as these things go. I work for a very large tech company. I'm white. I've been doing this job for a while. My job is very tolerant of my Twitter shenanigans. So my definition is a little colored, right? But in my opinion, being technical is about being a builder. And I don't really care what you're building. It could be systems. It could just be functions as part of the larger kind of universe of code inside a giant company. It could be Salesforce templates, it could be emails, it could be websites, it could be pipelines, doesn't really matter, but it's about being a builder. And I think more importantly, it's the ability to kind of reason and change our minds based on facts and data. It's curiosity for learning new things. It's the willingness to be wrong and to learn from being wrong. And you'll note that I didn't specify kind of coding as one of my definitions of being technical, right? There's lots of pieces to it, and I think that there are more pieces than I can fit in a PowerPoint slide, but coding is not the entirety of that definition. And in any case, how we defined kind of being technical and what the scope of a technical role is, it changes as we get more senior, as we progress along our careers. Again, this is also going to be fairly colored by the Amazon way of doing things. But to be an engineer at Amazon, you have SDE 1s and 2s and 3s. And after 3, it moves to principal, right? And regardless of what kind of engineer you are, so a front-end engineer, a software engineer, a back-end engineer, a systems engineer, it doesn't really matter. After SDE 3 comes principal. And along with principal, it's not just on code. That there's a kind of a burden of proof technically that you have to have like the portfolio, you have to have assets, you have to have kind of like these are all the things that I've produced in my career as an SDE 3. But a full 50% of it, if not more, and I think it's almost more important, is the ability to lead. It's to influence others, it's to mentor. It's how can I widen my scope of influence to not just be, it's expected that you won't spend all of your time coding the way that maybe you did as an SDE 1 or 2 or 3. It's a lot more sitting in meetings. It's a lot more writing things like strategy documents or mentoring others. And it's about bringing up engineers that are a little bit more junior or not quite as far ahead in their career. So that balance really shifts, right, from I produce code all the time to I help other people produce code, or I help other people produce architectures, or I help answer things like design questions or debug the really hard issues for them. And I like this. So focusing on this kind of leadership and influence part and mentoring folks, it not only helps ourselves, but it makes the industry better and kinder and more inclusive. So I don't want to promote an SDE 3 to a principal if I feel like they can't do this, right? If all they're going to do is write code in a vacuum, I don't think they're a principal. I think they're an SDE 3. And until that you can show the ability to kind of learn and influence and mentor, I think that an SDE 3 is where you should stay, right? And I think we have a problem in tech with the whole kind of brilliant asshole thing. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in this video, but Steve says okay. Okay. Swear more, okay. And I think that being able to kind of push out these brilliant jerks can make a huge difference for us. And this should kind of apply to everyone, right? So I need both that leadership and influence, and I need the technical ability. And empathy is as much of a part of being an excellent technical staff member as raw technical ability. But we have to talk about something else. And this is, I think, in a lot of stories, I think this comes up as particularly a problem from women in tech towards other women in tech. That we help reinforce that kind of toxic status quo by pushing down other women or making the bar just as hard for other women. And I think that a lot of this, too, has become particularly bad around things like boot camps and kind of non-conventional paths to tech, right? Is that you had to work really hard to be here. The bar was really high for you. So let's keep it just as high for everyone else. And not saying that we don't all need kind of the same, like, yes, the technical bar is high. It should be, right? But it doesn't mean that you can't come to the same place by lots of different ways. It could be a boot camp, it can be from one of those reentry programs. And we need to figure out a way to kind of make those all treated equally so that we, instead of making the path just as difficult for those that come after us, can we figure out a way to smooth the way? Can we figure out a way to help more people come into this industry, to help us make it a better and more empathetic place by making that path a little bit easier? And obviously, we should feel really bad for this. We're helping push people out of this industry and helping them not find a place that's, comfortable and supportive and understanding by pushing them out. So what can we do to fix all this? It is very on brand for me to just give 30 minutes of doom and gloom. But everyone will go into dinner sad. So what can we do? First, we kind of have to change our values. So I think kind of the default should go without saying, we need to level the playing field for diverse races and genders and appearances and jobs, people that come from different paths. So the boot camp or the I didn't get a college degree or you got a political science degree and never used it. We have to level the playing field for everyone. But to do that and to make the industry a place that these folks want to work, we have to do a couple of other things. So we all have to do the soft work. So we can't have this impression that, first, only minorities have to do the soft work. So it shouldn't be, the burden should not only be on women, should not only be on people of color. We all have to do it. And we have to make it so that the perception is not that the soft work is less, but that it is equal. And that we all have to have a hand in it. And we should all care about things like leadership and influence and mentoring. We all have to do it. And that no one should feel penalized for it. That you shouldn't feel like you can't achieve good things in your technical career because you took a break to do some mentorship talks or to work on a D&I project that was really important to you. So we have to reward that. We have to broaden how we define being technical. So we need to make sure that we're valuing all of these diverse skills and backgrounds and people and jobs. We have to value them equally because by just the coding measure of technical, not everyone does the same job, right? But everyone brings a ton of value to the table. And if we have to value them equally and we have to include them equally. And we have to value our people skills along with our coding skills. And I would take that one step further and say that we should not value coding that does not come with people skills. Tech can be used for a lot of evil. And if you have no empathy and you have no understanding of kind of the broader picture, you can do things that are really not good. And tech with no empathy, with no understanding, is not a good place to be in. So we need to make sure that instead of valuing these kind of brilliant assholes, that we push them out. That we say, actually, no, the people that we want in this industry are the ones that act like this, that teach and lead by example and think through the consequences of what they're building. So builders, but ones that understand kind of the broader ecosystem as well. And we have to value marketing and product management and how to talk to customers. We're all part of the same team. We're not all coding, but we're all technical, and we're all valued, and we're all part of the same team. No gatekeeping. That means all of us. So women also. No gatekeeping. Let's help the group behind us. In a lot of ways, it might be help that we didn't get, and we need to find a way to be okay with that. That they might have different advantages that we didn't have. And the best example for this one is that some of the nastiest comments I've gotten in this industry have been from other women. And the one that always kind of stuck out to me was that I gave a talk, and it was one of my first big ones, no public speaking experience. I get super nervous. And this woman came up to me afterwards, and she was like, I just wanted to let you know that it was wildly unprofessional that you wore leggings to give this talk. And I was like, that's all your feedback? Leggings? And so we need to help each other up, right? We need to make this an environment that everyone wants to be a part of. And that means don't gatekeep on appearances or on advantages that you didn't have that you wish you'd have. We have to let that go. And finally, we have to default to respect for everyone, full stop. So don't be one of those folks on my Twitter feed it's like, well, you didn't prove that he was wrong. And like, let me write a thesis. We have to default to respect. So we need to default that assuming that people deserve our respect and that they deserve to be there on equal footing, regardless of where they came from or what their job is or how technical we think that they are. We should default to believing people and to learning from them and to listening to them. And that goes for everyone. That's all. I think after this is dinner. I will stick around for a couple minutes if anyone has any questions. But thanks for coming to day one. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.